Then go over the 4 Imams, and then we're going to have an open Q&A. Excellent. And then we're going to have a Q&A on issues of Madhab. You understand? Everything's going wrong today. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. No power in the strength except for Allah. You are not in control, but Allah is in control.
Let's click enable editing first.
Now the thing was bottom right.
Anybody from John Laws? Yeah, come down. You guys can sort this out. You need help.
Just click
equipment rubbish.
Just click enable editing
I won't say
first.
anything else about anything else. Mohammed, how are you? Good. Alhamdulillah. You always got a smile on your face. You and Yusuf. A smile on your face. Been smiling for. Ali, how are you? What's your name, sister? Mariam. How are you? Good. I'm happy you. The women's numbers are diminishing. It's like it's slowly be extinct. There'll be no more women left. Wait, what's going on with this? So how do I? This is from Hamza. Okay, right. If you can get charge of that in the back. طيب. Maghrib is fast approaching. Inshallah. How are you all? How are you? Good. Alhamdulillah. Amir, how are you? Zuhair?
Alhamdulillah.
Jubair? Good. You've had a haircut?
Sorry?
Adam, have you had a haircut? What's your name?
Muhammad.
For you, Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman had a lot more hair than that. MashaAllah. Okay. طيب, Bismillah. Are we live streaming? By the way, live streaming, come to the Jubair, come to the front. I thought that was you, at the back. I was thinking, MashaAllah, different. Jubair, come to the
I think
front.
this is a better position because if I come to the front, the board will be obscured slightly.
طيب, how's
This is like the best position.
Apparently, John was recording it. Just if everything's better than John was. John was recording is better than University of Liverpool. That's what everyone's saying. I've got several people saying John was better. Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. I don't know what that says. Symbolic, I think. It's symbolic. طيب. Yeah. Believe it or not, a lot of people watch this. I've had people say, give you a lot of input. One suggestion was to put these videos into 10 smaller sections and have a high quality recording. Several people have told me that as well. People from London are watching it as well, or have watched it as well from other places as well. Can you hear me? I'm not. So I don't need this, Jubair. Awesome.
I mean, you can use it. Do you have another?
I can use this, not a problem. Is that better?
Yeah,
For
everyone else.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Khair. First time you smile at me. Thank you, Rami. Bismillah. Hassan, welcome. Your voice is loud and clear. This is taken from Sheikh Noah's The Reliance of the Traveller about Imam Abu Hanifa. Because we spoke about the 4 Imams. These slides will be uploaded. You don't have to copy them all down, inshallah. But anything extra not on these slides, please write it down, inshallah. So Bismillah. We'll be speaking about the 4 Imams. Bismillah. Imam Abu Hanifa. Read it all.
Imam Abu Hanifa is Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man ibn Thabit, the greatest Imam born in AH 18 in Kufa. He was a scholar
In Kufa.
in Kufa.
Not Kufa.
And it's in Kufa.
Kufa. Who the hell said Kufa? You know? I see. He next year as well. We don't make after the khutbah. I'm not calling anybody kafir.
was a scholar of
Pause. You know, this topic, people ask me, why did you do this topic? There's no need for it. Talk about marriage, talk about mental health, talk about X, Y, and Z. And I agree, they are very important topics. However, what I realized that if you come and spend one Jum'ah afternoon with me and just sit in the prayer room and just see the type of questions that people ask. Those who were there on Jum'ah with me afterwards, yeah, you guys are there as well. You can see the type of questions I get asked. And the type of criticisms. So, it's very rare for a Jum'ah to go by. I don't get accused of being lenient. Those who are on Jum'ah with me on Friday, you heard what some people were saying, that, well, no, this is wrong. What you're doing this particular way is wrong. You've got to do it another particular way. And the way I'm doing it, which is the way that the Ummah's been doing it, is all wrong obedience. So there's a need for this topic. A week doesn't go by unless I'm being asked, I'm being reminded of how important this topic is. Some of you may not think it is, but again, just hang out with me for one Jummah afternoon and just see the questions that I get asked. And I say to them, what do I say to them? What do I say to them? No, Allah, that's true. What? Muhammad, what do I say to them? Huh? Anybody here who asked me questions on Friday after Jummah? Anybody here? That obviously I told come here. I was surprised they don't come. Why should I bother? People don't bother coming. Because people want to argue, and life's too short. Life's too short, right? Maria, life's too short, right? On the law of averages, my life is shorter than yours. Bismillah. Go, Hassan.
Imam Abu Hanifa is Abu Hanifa al-Nu'man ibn Thabit, the greatest Imam, born in AH-80 in Kufa.
Kufa. Anybody know what Kufa is? Kufa? Bismillah, keep going.
He was the scholar of Iraq and the foremost representative and the exemplar of the school of juridical opinion. The Hanafi school, which he founded, has decided court cases in the majority of Islamic lands for the greater part of Islam's history, including the Abbasid and Ottoman periods, and maintains its preeminence in Islamic courts today. Abu Hanifa was the first to analyze Islamic jurisprudence, divide it into subjects, distinguish its issues, and determine the range of criteria for analogical reasoning therein. Shafi'i used to say of him, in jurisprudence, all scholars are the children of Abu Hanifa.
So, this is the beginning, introduction to Imam Abu Hanifa, who the other scholars call Imam al-A'zam. What does that mean, those who are Arab? Imam al-A'zam. A'zam? Hands up. No? Hands up. University of Liverpool, right? I'm going to pick on the University of Liverpool. I'm going to pick on it today. You have to forgive me. Go ahead.
Is the greatest Imam.
The greatest Imam, Al-A'zam. And that's what the other Madahib call him. Yeah? A different school will become the greatest Imam. It tells you what does that tell you, sisters? Ali, actually name Ali. What does that say? The fact that they call him Imam Al-A'zam. And I forgot to pray on, I should have prayed on that.
They have a lot of respect for his work.
Despite them not seeing eye to eye, they have different positions, but here we go, tolerance. MashaAllah. 80 to year 150. Very early on. As after Hitler. Okay, the greatest Imam. I'm not paying attention. Keep going. In jurisprudence, all scholars are the children of Imam Abu Hanifa. Imam al-Shafi'i is saying what by himself in relation to Imam Abu Hanifa? What is he saying by himself? And Imam Abu Hanifa is?
His father.
MashaAllah. Ajib. Beautiful, huh? Now, people will criticize, okay, who's heard of the criticism that people have on the Hanafi school? Like what?
That
it's like the most divergent, the most different to the other madhahib.
Different in what way?
In terms of like technicalities.
Speak louder. Where's the microphone? Jubair. Sa'id bin Jubair. One of the great Sahaba.
It's like in terms of technicalities of like how to pray and like the other basics.
People have problems with the Hanafi school.
You said one time that thanks. You said one time that because Imam Abu Hanifa used a select amount of hadiths because of like some hadith being fake or something, that some people had a problem with that.
Right.
But then it got reviewed, the madhab got reviewed, and all the correct hadith they got later put in back.
So this Imam Abu Hanifa's school, we should not be looked at as being one man show. Alright? It's a school in which people in this age criticize because the hadith that they know are not being used by Imam Abu Hanifa in the school. So they see a hadith in Sahih Muslim or Sahih Bukhari that says raise the hands in the ruku', and that's Sahih hadith. We know it's Sahih. But Imam Abu Hanifa in the school doesn't use it. Is that because he didn't know it was there? And if you knew it was there, why did you choose a different position? And more importantly, are you confident and satisfied that the position that he came to is also valid? Or do you have doubts? This is kind of the things that some of the criticisms that people have against Imam Abu Hanifa. This is a bit technical, just bear with me. When you're ready.
The Imam and his school have been misunderstood by some who have believed that the Imam's knowledge of hadith was largely limited to what was transmitted by the narrators of Kufa, especially through the companion Ibn Mas'ud. In fact, the Imam was a hadith expert who had all the hadiths of the companions of Makkah and Medina in addition to those of Kufa, and only lacked a relatively few channels of narrators who were in Damascus.
Contrary to what some of the people of this age say, that Imam Abu Hanifa's madhab is weak, doesn't have videos, his hadith, blah, 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 blah. He was a hadith expert. Number one. Imam Abu Hanifa was an expert of hadith. Alright? Expert in hadith. Number two, he had all the hadiths of the companions of Mecca and Medina. He had access to them. And in addition to those in Kufa, why were the hadith in Kufa? Logically,
Sahaba's move.
Sahaba, like who? Ibn Mas'ud, like who? Sayyidina Ali ibn Abi Talib, karramallahu wajhahu. He went there. So the hadith, obviously, went there. So he had access to all these hadith. Right?
His Musnad, ascribed traditions, is comparable in size to the Muwatta of Imam Malik and the Musnad of Shafi'i, which the latter based their respective schools upon.
So his Musnad, traditions ascribed, he has a collection of hadith himself, is comparable in size to Muwatta of Imam Malik. Muwatta of Imam Malik is a big chunky book of hadith. One of the earliest books of hadith that is well known. Imam Abu Hanifa had his own. And Imam Shafi'i also had his Musnad. Okay, and they used those hadith in those books, as well as others that they probably didn't mention in those books, to formulate their schools. Imam Abu Hanifa's school didn't come out of thin air, or didn't come out kind of just, this theory. No, based on hadith. It may not be the hadith you know, or the hadith you can get access to quickly, but it's based on hadith.
For one reason, Muwatta and Imam Muhammad Malik's work, which Abu Hanifa's disciple Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani studied and annotated for 3 years under Malik at Medina, one gains complete conviction from Muhammad's notes that virtually every hadith therein was familiar to Abu Hanifa before he arrived at the positions of the school.
So when you read the Muwatta of Imam Muhammad, al-Shaybani, which he studied with Imam Malik himself, alright, and obviously this did not miss Imam Abu Hanifa because Muhammad Shaybani was a student as well. He took that into consideration, so he knew the hadith. This just highlights again, he knew the hadith. He had to have known these hadith. It doesn't make any sense otherwise.
All of which is a persuasive case against the suggestions of the unlearned that Abu Hanifa did not know hadith. Nevertheless, the Imam was of an age that was plagued by hadith forgers.
Now look, do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? What does that mean? Those of you who have little children, siblings, for example, having a bath. You get rid of the bathwater, but you don't throw the baby out as well. True? Unless you have social services coming in to speak to you, otherwise there's problems. But generally, you don't throw out the baby and the bathwater at the same time. Why do I say that? Hadith, there's forgeries in hadith. Do we throw out the whole science of hadith? And say just because there's forgeries, we get rid of it, the whole science of hadith? Do we do that? Do we do that? I mean, we don't do it. We don't get rid of the whole science of hadith just because forgeries existed. We get rid of the forgeries. Yes? And the same thing goes for every single Islamic science. Just because things have crept in there doesn't mean throw everything out. That point is going to become a lot more clearer. Lecture 7 and 8. When we talk about tasawwuf, spirituality, that topic, and that point will be reinforced again. Bismillah.
He was moved by his extreme piety to reject any hadith that he was not reasonably sure was authentic, for which reason he applied a relatively selective range of hadith evidence in sacred law. His school, for example, does not accept qualifications or modifications of any ruling established by a Quranic verse when such qualification comes through a hadith but with one, even if rigorously authenticated.
So the hadith has one chain of transmission. For example, he doesn't generally kind of take those hadith ones a bit more rigorous, especially when it comes to restricting the meaning in the verse or takhsis al-ayah. Restricting a verse or making it more specific. If it's a hadith that has one chain of transmission, he needs something a lot more stronger in his method to restrict the meaning of a particular verse of Quran. Other schools might not have that. That's how differences of opinion come.
But only if it comes to a hadith with 3 separate channels of transmission.
So he wants a bit more. 3 separate channels of transmission. Listen.
So despite Abu Hanifa's being a hadith specialist, his school reflects a legacy of extensive use of analogy and deduction from specific rulings and general principles established by primary texts acceptable to the Imam's rigorous standards.
So it has a slightly different way of deriving, of doing ijtihad. What's ijtihad? It's Baha here. Ijtihad. Mahdiyah, Mahdiyah, subhanAllah. Look at that big one. Mahd. MashaAllah. Don't wake it up. If you were going to drive, alright? Hassan? No, Hassan means all that. Come on, dude. Seriously. Ijtihad. Okay, mujtahid. Not mujahid. Not mujahid. Mujtahid. Deriving rulings directly from the Quran and Sunnah. That's called, a person who does that is called a mujtahid. The act of doing that is called ijtihad. Alright, Bismillah. So, Abu Hanifa is a hadith specialist. His school reflects a legacy of extensive analogy and deduction for specific rulings. He uses qiyas a lot. And people who are very superficial want hadith sahih would generally have problems with the school of Abu Hanifa. But the problem is not his school, the problem is
As well as the use of inference and juridical opinion as to what conforms to the human interests in general protected and furthered by sacred law. With his legal brilliance, he was equally well known for his piety and try to pronounce that.
Come on, you can try that. Oh, who said that?
And though he
Who said that? I can see. Say again.
asceticism.
Again.
Asceticism.
Say quickly.
Asceticism.
MashaAllah. You can read the next few slides, I think. Well, now stay with Hassan.
And though he had wealth from a number of shops selling cloth,
Okay, what does that mean? What does that word mean? Huh? Okay, seriously. What's this probably these sciences? Law Street. Ah, I got you. I got you. Come on, seriously. Right, alright. Come on.
I'm not sure, but refraining from.
This is why the education system in Nigeria is better than England. You should go back to Nigeria, don't come here. Don't waste your time. But anyway, I know that the certificate is important to get it, inshallah. There's people who are listening trying to criticize me, take these things like, oh, look, he's doing this, he's doing that, making form. I could have. Bismillah. Anyway, so it means what?
I think
To record it. No. You said it right?
refrain from.
Refraining from the world.
Yeah.
That's what it means. Bismillah, keep reading.
and though he had wealth from a number of shops selling cloth, to which he made occasional rounds in superintending their managers, he devoted his fortune to helping students and researchers in sacred law, and many a scholar was to realize how much the Imam's financial help had meant when it was discontinued after his death. He shunned sheep at night, and some called him the peg, because of his perpetual standing for prayer therein, often reciting the entire Quran in his nightly regards. He performed at the dawn prayer for 40 years, with the ablution made for the nightfall prayer. Would only sleep a short while between his noon and mid-afternoon prayers. By the end of his life, he had recited the Holy Quran 7,000 times in the place where he died. He would never sit in the shade of a wall belonging to someone he had loaned money, saying, "Every loan that brings benefit is usury." He died in Baghdad in 150 after Hijrah, at 70 years of age, leaving an intellectual and spiritual legacy that few scholars have ever equaled.
I put that up there so you can see, as well as being brilliant scholars, these were people who were friends of Allah. These are people who are of the highest levels of piety, of wilayah. How many times have people who criticize Imam Abu Hanifa's school, I like to say, how many times have they read the Quran? Because Imam Abu Hanifa read the Quran how many times? Be louder? You think about that. You think about that. And praying Fajr, wudu Isha. How many years?
40.
Oh, you who miss Fajr. And we're not going to criticize Imam Abu Hanifa. We're going to criticize the school. More people criticize these Imams. And Yom Al-Qiyamah, you get backbiting, he's not there. And Yom Al-Qiyamah, you're going to stand in front of Allah. And know His greatness, He'll forgive you anyway. He'll forgive you anyway, because these people are great. But Allah doesn't like it when people say things about His friends. And just because the person may forgive, Allah may take faults and punish the person. Very careful. Saying things about the scholars, that the flesh of scholars is haram, poison. One of the reasons why people have a bad ending, Arabic, su' al-khatima, a bad ending. If we die on La ilaha illallah, inshallah we go to heaven. Some people can't even say La ilaha illallah on their deathbed. They're not allowed. What do you mean not allowed? They can't. Why? Because the sins and the lives prevent them from saying La ilaha illallah on their deathbed. You can't. And people have seen that happen. People haven't been able to say it and they die. Su' al-khatima, bad ending. The great ulama, great awliya, salihin, mashallah. The peg was called, perpetual standing of prayer. These people of the sunnah. I hope this is kind of leaving you inspired and in awe. You should be. Bismillah, Imam Malik.
Imam Malik is Malik ibn Anas ibn Malik, Abu Abdullah al-Asbahi al-Himayri, the Mujtahid Imam
From what I remember, Al-Himyar is in Yemen. From what I remember. And it's a base in Yemen. I could be wrong.
The Mujtahid Imam born in Medina in 93. The second of the four greatest Imams of sacred law, his school has more followers than that of anyone besides Abu Hanifa.
Ajib. That's what I pulled from Sheikh Norse. Allah, in his book, the Master Shabbat. I'm going to have a look at that. Numbers may suggest otherwise. I could be wrong. Anyway.
He was known as the scholar of Medina and was as renowned for his sincerity, faith, piety, and God-fearingness as for his command of the sciences of hadith and knowledge of sacred law.
Again, not just a scholar, but also someone of extreme piety, of wilayah, of salah, of everything you can think of. These people follow the Prophet inwardly and outwardly. These slides will be uploaded at the end, inshallah, right?
His generosity was legendary, as was his love for the Prophet whom he held in such awe and respect that he would not mount his horse within the confines of Medina out of reverence for the ground that enclosed the Prophet's body.
Can you explain that to me? What that means? Zuhair.
He loved the Prophet, peace be upon him, so much that he couldn't bear to even leave the city.
That was well, but something else. Read it. Sisters. Maryam, what's it say? What do you take from that? And that respect was shown by on the wall. Do you know what that means? Okay, in those days, getting into a car you couldn't do. Why? Cars didn't exist. They get on their camels or horses or donkeys and walk around. He wouldn't do that. Out of respect to this ground, the ground that the Prophet walked on. He wouldn't do that. There's also things that say that he would walk around barefoot. This is the land the Prophet walked upon. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. What did he say then to people who say, you guys, you praise the Prophet too much, you love the Prophet too much? It's Imam Malik. Alright, from Medina. Right? From the Salaf. Right? What's that tell you? That's the word the Salaf. In such awe and respect that he would not mount his horse within the confines of Medina out of reverence for the ground that enclosed the Prophet's body. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
His piety was such that he was never too proud to say he did not know when asked about matters he was not sure of. And he would not relate a hadith without first performing ablution.
So two things. A, if he didn't know something, and that was very rare, he would say, I don't know. Unlike the age we live in today, nobody wants to say, I don't know. And if you say, I don't know, people think you don't know anything. Alhamdulillah, and that's hadith. Anyway. And he will not relate a hadith without performing wudu. How many hadith did he narrate in his life? And some hadith he repeated. Every time he did wudu. He did wudu when relating hadith. Why? Why? Because this is hadith. The words of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Bid'ah, right? Did the Prophet do that? The Sahaba do that? Bid'ah? People are thinking, man. People are thinking. Isn't that?
He was the author of Al-Muwatta, the Trodden Path, the greatest hadith collection of its time, nearly every hadith of which was accepted by Bukhari in his Sahih. His disciple Imam Shafi'i used to say of it,
That's right.
after the Book of Allah, no book has appeared on earth that is sounder than Malik.
La ilaha illallah. That's Imam Shafi'i. MashaAllah. Saying what? After the Book of Allah, there's no sounder book at that time than Muwatta ibn Malik. Okay. That's his Sheikh. And he has a bit on school. Look at the praise. You're not going to find this outside of Sunni Islam for schools. You're not going to find it. Don't look for it. You're not going to find this tolerance. It doesn't exist.
He was uncompromising in his religion and kept far from the rulers and princes of the time. When he gave the opinion that the Caliph Al-Mansur should be Al-Mansur should be removed and Muhammad ibn Abdullah of Ali's family reinstated, the Caliph's uncle Ja'far ibn Sulaiman, governor of Medina, had Malik scourged 70 lashes, dislocated his shoulder.
So, he gave the opinion. He gave the opinion. He gave the opinion that Muhammad should be removed. He gave the opinion. The Khalifa of that time should be removed, and Muhammad ibn Abdullah of Sayyidina Ali's family should be put instead. He has proof positions for that, alhamdulillah. When the Caliph's uncle heard about that, he was the governor of Medina, where Imam Malik was, Imam Malik was beaten. 70 lashes. And they said that he was placed on a horse backwards and paraded around the city. And he was saying, you know who I am, I'm Imam Malik. I am Imam Malik. What people are saying is wrong, what I'm saying is right, I'm Imam Malik. That was done in a way it's kind of as a way of humiliating. It is said, listen to this, that when he was, the person that whipped him, when he kind of repented and went back to him and said, look, please forgive me. I said, I know who you are. I was kind of coalescing. In that night, I think every time you whip me, I forgive you. Every time you raise your hand, I forgive you from the whip from before. And the reason why was because I realized you're from the Prophet's family. The guy that was whipping him was from the Prophet's family. So as my love for the Prophet and his family, every whip I forgive you. We as Ahlul Sunnah, we love the Prophet's family. Don't believe anything else. People say otherwise, I'm not part of Ahlul Sunnah.
The only effect of this was to increase the Imam's high-mindedness and dignity. When Al-Mansur learnt of it, he apologized profusely and asked Malik to write a book of Islamic jurisprudence that he could enjoin with the force of law upon all Muslims regardless of their school, but the Imam refused. The author outstanding.
Why do you think he refused? Sisters. Perfect opportunity, right? Get his views famous. Why give up on that? Why? Perfect opportunity. Say again? The force of law? Okay. Keep going. No, it's a lot more simple than that. It's a lot more simple. He could have had his book, Al-Muwatta, MashaAllah, Imam Shafi'i, you just heard what he said about the book. And they're saying, write a book of Islamic jurisprudence, and we will govern people of Medina by that madhab. Regardless of all that madhab existed, all the opinions. Said no. True, yeah, they didn't want to force his opinions on other people. Humility as well, although you can say this is knowledge. Yeah, it's humble.
Is it that he doesn't believe he's the only one that's right?
Yes, also, mashallah, jazakumullah khair. But this is a perfect opportunity. There's no nafs. There's no ego. It's lillah. It's lillah. It's not for anything else. If it was about prestige, reputation, he'd be right there. He's not. He's lillah. Lillah.
He authored outstanding works in sacred law, hadith, and Quranic exegesis. Left behind a host of brilliant scholars he had trained as part of his great legacy to Islam and the Muslims. He died in Medina in 179.
that's where they're taken from, all that, inshallah. Right. Salat al-Maghrib, inshallah, we're gonna, Yusuf, Bismillah, you do that adhan. We're gonna pray, and we're gonna go to Imam Shafi'i, inshallah. A lot more lightened today, but nonetheless, very important and very powerful. Reminds us about these great men who we follow. Bismillah. If you can pause the recording, because people said no point in watching people pray. Bismillah, Yusuf. Do that.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah.
Bismillah.
Imam Shafi'i is Muhammad ibn Idris ibn al-Abbas ibn Uthman ibn Shafi ibn al-Sa'ib ibn Ubayd ibn Abdo ibn Hashim ibn al-Muttalib ibn Abdul Manaf Abu Abdullah al-Qurayshi al-Makki al-Shafi'i.
MashaAllah. Abu Bakr, did you pray about this?
Yeah.
What does that say about his lineage? Hands up. Something very interesting about his lineage.
Quraysh,
Qurayshi, which means what?
the clan of the prophets.
Aywa, he's Ahl Bayt. The only one of the 40 imams from the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Alright? There you go.
Descended from the great grandfather of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
150/767.
Born in 150 in Gaza, Palestine, Shafi'i was the Imam of the world, the Mujtahid of his time, one of the most brilliant and original legal scholars mankind has ever known. An orphan brought to Mecca when he was 2 years old and raised there by his mother in circumstances of extreme poverty and want. He memorized the Holy Quran at age 7.
No talking, eh? Pay attention.
Then
Otherwise, I need to read it next time. Soon quiet.
the Muwatta of Imam Malik at 10 and was authorized to give formal legal opinion, fatwa, at the age of 15 by his Sheikh, Muslim ibn Khalid al-Zinji, the Mufti of Makkah.
The last paragraph, what stands out for you? Ah,
That he was by 15, he was qualified already to.
Amir.
Memorizing the Quran by 7.
By 7. Ajib.
I was going to say the same.
Anything else stand out? Any sisters? All of this before the age of puberty. Mashallah, thank you. Excellent.
He traveled to Medina and studied under Imam Malik, and then to Baghdad, where he was a student of Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan al-Shaybani, the colleague of Abu Hanifa.
So he's already learning from the greatest minds that existed in the time.
In Baghdad, Imam
If you're getting
Shafi'i.
tired, you can read next to you. Do you want to hold it? You can bear rights. Alright. Bismillah.
Imam Shafi'i produced his first school of jurisprudence, Al-Madhab al-Khalid,
Madhab al-Qadim.
Qadim. But when the persecution arose over the uncreatedness of the Quran, he spoke to Ahmad ibn Hanbal, and they mutually agreed that rather than risk the loss of both Islam's living mujtahids, they should part company. Shafi'i traveling with his books and belongings to Cairo, and Ahmad remaining in Iraq.
Right, a few things there. So in Baghdad, Imam Shafi'i produced his first school. We've said that these schools are a work in progress and they, over centuries, developed. Imam Shafi'i actually revised this whole school in his lifetime. In his lifetime, he revised it, which is rare. But when the persecution arose over the uncreatedness of the Quran, that's something I'm going to talk about not next week, the week after. During that time, there's lots of fitna, certain sects existed. One of the sects that existed, called the Mu'tazila. You're going to know all about them in 2 weeks' time. Needless to say, they caused a lot of problems, and because the official state-sponsored religion of this, or the interpretation, was the Mu'tazili interpretation, everybody had to follow that particular interpretation, everything in it. And one of the strange things that this particular group had, or this sect had, was the Quran was created. And I'll explain that in the future, but for now, just know there's some issues with that. Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, they had this issue. Do we stay here and deal with this issue, stand up to all the fitna, or do we accuse something else. They say they both had this thing is that Imam al-Shafi'i would travel his books and bring along to Cairo, and Ahmed would remain in Iraq. We're going to find out that decision played out, what it meant for Imam Ahmed. We'll see when we come to talk about Imam Ahmed ibn Hanbal. Needless to say, Imam al-Shafi'i went. Had they stayed, persecution would have happened, maybe worse would have happened to these two great imams. Sometimes scholars, in the face of persecution, political problems, they will make decisions that people don't understand. And people at that time might have criticized Imam al-Shafi'i. Oh, you're scared, you're not standing up to what's being done. There's wisdom. These scholars sit with each other and say, listen, and two of us get imprisoned or worse, the Ummah will lose out. You go and I'll stay behind. A lot of wisdom in that. A lot of wisdom. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله. أيوه.
It was in Cairo that, in the astonishing space of only 4 years, Shafi'i conceived and edited a second, entirely new school of jurisprudence, al-Madhhab al-Jadid, embodied in his 7-volume Al-Umm. The Imam and his legacy are monumental. His Risala was the first work in the history of mankind to investigate the theoretical and practical basis of jurisprudence.
This is called Usul al-Fiqh. The past few lectures we've been talking about the abrogation, non-abrogation, all these taxis, all of these things we spoke about in the past 2 lectures. How do you ta'arud al-adillah when proofs kind of apparently contradict each other? He devised the whole Usul al-Fiqh. It was him.
In Quranic exegesis, he was the first to formulate the principles of the science of which verses abrogate the others and which are abrogated. His knowledge of the Quran and Sunnah and of the accord between the different elements of each and the conditionality and explanation of some by others were incomparable. His Arabic style and diction were recorded and used as lexical evidence by later grammarians and lexicologists. And despite his surpassing eloquence in the language, being Arabic in tongue, residence, and historic epoch, he studied it in depth for 20 years, and through the medium of it grasped the Quran and Sunnah.
What does that say about him in regards to the Arabic language? Abu Bakr, what does that say about him in the Arabic language? Exactly, that's what I picked.
He's beyond proficient with it.
Interesting choice of the Anik, what's that say?
Well, we studied it for 20 years, so it's like an expert.
That was the posh version, that was the street version. And he's Arab as well. And he had really had a mastery. Despite that, he spent 20 years.
He paved the way for the enormous importance attached by subsequent generations of Muslims to the study of prophetic hadith, as reflected in the fact that most of the imams in the field were of his school.
What field? Sisters, what field? Sister, open up something. What field? Muhammad, what field?
Hadith.
Exactly, hadith.
Including Bukhari, Muslim, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, Bayhaqi, Al-Hakim.
ونعيم ابن حبان القطني ابن خزيمة ابن صلاح الله يستغفركم يعني العراقي السيوطي الذهبي ابن كثير نور الدين الهيثمي المنذري إمام النووي تقي الدين السبكي and others. How many of those names have you heard? Hands up. Have you heard at least one of those names? Scholars of Hadith. Pretty certain, yeah. All of them followed the Shafi'i school, which is a proof. You could argue following the school. The fact that the Hadith scholars followed the school. The new brother or sister who say we should follow the Quran and Sunnah, the very collectors of the Sunnah themselves followed the school. Is that not a proof? It was for me 25 years ago reading this.
Imam Muhammad ibn Hassan Shaybani said of him, if the scholars of Hadith speak, it is in the language of Shafi'i. Hassan ibn Muhammad Za'farani observed Sir, the scholars of Hadith were asleep and awoke when Shafi'i woke them.
MashaAllah.
Imam Ahmad said, no one touches an ink roll or pen with his hand, save that he owes a debt to Shafi'i.
Again, Imam Ahmed had his own school, but he realized the brilliance of his teacher.
By the time Shafi'i reached Cairo in 199, his fame had spread to the horizons. Scholars from all parts of the Muslim world traveled to hear him.
At the time beyond before internet and Telegram or whatever else you guys may use, there's actually a hadith. This hadith that prophesies Imam Hanifa. And there's a hadith that talks about Imam Shafi, and there's a hadith that talks about Imam Malik. And the scholars of hadith these particular hadith refer to those scholars. I didn't have time, sadly, for those hadiths to exist.
A student and scribe, Rabi ibn Sulaiman, was to say, I have seen 700 white camels tethered at Shafi's door, belonging to those who came to hear him.
What does that mean? What do you take from that? Oh,
That like a lot of people went to him for.
not just a lot of people, we're talking like a lot of people.
The author of some 113 works, it was nonetheless Shafi'i's hope that people would learn this knowledge without ascribing a single letter of it to me.
Despite all that brilliance, this is his dua. People would learn this knowledge without ascribing a single letter to me. And amazing, right? He doesn't want any fame. Lillah. Doesn't care about the fame. It's lillah. Lillah. And that which is fit for lillah stays. It never goes.
Zakaria Ansari remarked, Allah granted his wish, for one seldom hears any position of his, save that it is ascribed to others of his school with the words Rafi'i or Nawawi, Zakashi says, and the like.
So I've studied the Shafi'i school for about 8 years. From all the books, from the beginning to the end, 2 books a day. And hardly did we ever hear Imam Shafi'i being named. In studying 8 years or 9 years, you hardly hear his name being taught. Very rare. So when is he studying Imam Nawawi, Ibn Hajar, Imam Ramli, Zarkashi? Why? The scholars say his dua was answered. Even in his own madhab, he never heard his name being mentioned. Exactly, huh? Amazing. Amazing.
Of proverbial generosity, it is recorded that when he once bought 10,000 dinars from Yemen, he pitched a tent outside of Mecca and had it given all away to passers-by before the day ended. He was moderate in dress, and his ring bore the inscription, Allah suffices Muhammad
Ibn Idris.
ibn Idris. He once said, knowledge is not what is memorized, but only what benefits.
Knowledge is not what is memorized, but only what benefits. You can put that on your Instagram or whatever it is, or your WhatsApp. You know you have a circular thing now that kind of lights up and you put something in there, whatever it is you guys like to do in your spare time. That's a nice phrase to have. Inshallah. Maybe that's the iSocks logo for next year. Or LJB. But the point is, knowledge is not what is memorized, only that which is beneficial. So ponder on that for a second. So it's not about memorizing a great deal. Because you can memorize a great deal and be no benefit. La ilaha illallah.
And this conviction imbued his personal religious life, where he divided his night into 3 parts. In the first of which he would write, in the second pray, and in the third sleep.
MashaAllah. So the first third you do what? Sisters, first third of the night. Right, find what? His fatwa, his books, researching, right things. Alright, and then? Yeah, you.
He would pray in the second one.
And the last third? Last third? Sleep.
He He recited the entire Quran each day at prayer and twice a day in Ramadan.
Read that again for people who missed that.
He recited the entire Quran each day at prayer and twice a day in Ramadan.
Some are going to say, oh, this exaggeration, da 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 da. Just because you can't do it, akhi. Just because you don't know how to do that. Just because Allah has no benefit in your time, because you have no benefit in your time. Isn't that the friends of Allah, the awliya, the salihin, and time to extend it to them? You can say this is a miracle. We believe in miracles. Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we believe in miracles. Bismillah.
When a remark was once made to him about his using a walking stick, he said, I do it to remind myself that I am on a journey after this life.
Many of my own teachers, when they reach a particular age, they start using a stick. This is the sunnah. Bid'ah, right? You know, you're laughing. You don't understand the ridiculousness of some of these comments.
A man of intense spiritual presence who could truthfully say of himself, I have never told a lie.
Never told a lie. That was the only thing. That was the only thing. That'd be enough. Just that, in this day and age, that was the only thing. Never told a lie.
His students were in such awe of him that they could not take a drink of water while he was looking on. Among his pupils were a number of the imams of the time, such as Ahmed Rabi ibn Sulaiman, al-Mubani,
Muslim.
al-Muzni, Dawood ibn Khalaf al-Zahri, and others. He studied and taught sacred law in Cairo until his death at 53 years of age in 204.
Only 53. All that he did. 53.
At the end of a lifetime of service to Islam and the Muslims by one of the greatest in knowledge, the Quran and Sunnah.
That's the references. Mostly taken from Umar al-Sadiq or the rest of the Shabbat by Sheikh Mahmoud. MashaAllah. طيب أحمد بن حنبل last one.
Imam Ahmed is Ahmed ibn Muhammad ibn Hanbal ibn Hilal ibn Asad Abu Abdullah al-Shaybani. Imam of Ahl Sunnah, born in 164 in Baghdad, where he grew up as an orphan.
Interesting, right? Him and Imam al-Shafi'i are both orphans. In Arabic language, a yatim is somebody that has one parent missing. Just one parent missing. Arabic language. See that?
For 16 years, he traveled in pursuit of the knowledge of Hadith to Kufa, Basra, Mecca, Medina, Yemen, Damascus, Morocco, Algeria, Persia, and Khorasan.
At a time when there was no planes, no EasyJet, no Ryanair or British Airways or whatever else, or Saudi Airlines, whatever else you may be using. That's amazing. 16 years studying Hadith, Kufa, Basra, that's in Iraq, Mecca, then Medina, then Yemen, Damascus, Morocco, Algeria, Doha, Algeria, Persia.
From Libya.
Amazing.
They're from Libya, not Algeria.
The same thing, explain. All the same thing. All the same. It is all the same thing. Until the colonists came and divided it all up and gave us different names. It's all mother and mother. Just Libya. Point is what? He did not leave anything, any place that he could go to, that he didn't go to.
Memorizing 100,000 hadiths, 30,000 of which he recorded in his musnad.
Say it again so people can hear. And the recording.
Memorizing 100,000 hadiths, 30,000.
Just in figures, begin. Say one, kind of.
100,000.
Numbers. 1, 0,
Oh.
0, right?
1, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0.
Any more zeros? Is that it?
That's it. Imam Ahmed was among the most outstanding students of Shafi'i, who, when he left Baghdad for Egypt, said, In departing from Baghdad, I have left no one in it more God-fearing, learned in sacred law, abstinent, pious, or knowledgeable than Ibn Hanbal.
MashaAllah. So he's saying, look, I'm leaving here. Don't forget, they actually agreed. Ahmad ibn Hanbal will stay, and the persecution will find out what's going to happen. Imam Shafi'i was going to go to Egypt, where he dies. But he's saying, look, this is my Khalifa, I'm saying that. This is the best I recommend you people taking knowledge from.
Out of piety, Imam Ahmad never gave a formal legal opinion, while Shafi'i was in Iraq.
Why? Respect. Compare that to the situation you have in our prayer rooms or mosques. When somebody asks a question, for example, somebody asks me a question, I'm about to answer and 3 people jump in and get the answer. Or one person jumps in to get the answer. I don't mind, but 9 times out of 10 the answers are wrong. So it's embarrassing. I have to tell you're wrong here, and I have to correct him, which is embarrassing, and then get the right answer. But you know, the truer than that, they don't talk. When somebody else is more knowledgeable than you, keep quiet. Not this age we live in now with entitlement, you can say what you want. You're not entitled to anything because you have more knowledge. And even when you have knowledge, you recognize as people greater than you, you have adab, manners, and etiquettes, which is lost in this generation.
When he later formulated his school of jurisprudence, he mainly drew on explicit texts from the Quran, Hadith, and scholarly consensus, with relatively little expansion from analogical reasoning.
The opposite to which school? You're paying attention. Opposite to which school? Haywa. The Hanafi school is different. Hanafi school is more difficult to kind of, on the surface, to understand the position. The Hanbali school and the Shafi'i school are very easy. Okay, the Hadith, it's very long and easy to deal with. For those who are very superficial.
He was probably the most learned in the science of Hadith of the 4 great Imams of sacred law, and his students included many of the foremost scholars of Hadith. Abu Dawood said of him, Ahmad's gatherings were gatherings of the afterlife. Nothing of this world was mentioned. Never once did I hear him mention this worldly thing.
And then people say that once somebody like this leaves the world, they remember that they are in the world. Literally, when they're with these people, they forget they're in the dunya. They forget the world, you know? And then so they're in heaven. And then when these great imams go and the knowledge stops, they realize suddenly, oh God, we're in this world.
Abu Zura said, Ahmed was even greater than Ishaq and more knowledgeable in jurisprudence. I never saw anyone more perfect than Ahmed. He never once missed praying in the night and used to recite the entire Quran daily.
Praying what? Fajr? Not Qiyam al-Layl. These are not people in this Fajr. These people who are praying Qiyam al-Layl and Tahajjud. And recite the whole Quran daily.
He said, I saw the Lord of power in my sleep and said, O Lord, what is the best act through which those near to you draw nearer? And he answered, through reciting my word, O Ahmed. I asked with understanding or without, and he answered with understanding and without. Ibrahim al-Harbi noted of Ahmed, it is as though Allah gathered in him the combined knowledge of the first and the last. Ahmed was imprisoned and tortured for 28 months under the Abbasid Caliph.
28 months. It's a long time, right? It's one of the greatest scholars in the world.
In an effort to force him to publicly espouse the Mu'tazilite position that the Holy Quran was created.
And we'll talk about that sect in 2 weeks' time.
But the Imam bore up unflinchingly under the persecution and refused to renounce the belief of Ahl Sunnah that the Quran is the uncreated word of Allah, after which Allah delivered and vindicated him. When Ahmad died in 241, he was accompanied to his resting place by a funeral procession of 800,000 men and 60,000 women.
Altogether, who's good at maths? Huh? How many?
860,000.
800 and
60,000.
read that statement.
Between us and them is our free rules.
بيننا وبينهم الجنائز. That's a very famous statement. And what that statement refers to is that when the scholars of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, when the awliya, the friends of Allah, these people, when they pass away, in their funerals, that's how you know. You know the rank of these people when they die. By the hundreds and thousands of people that turn up. And people become, they say people became Muslim. When Ahmed ibn Hanbal passed away, people became Muslim. People who were there, that were Jews or Christians or that kind of faith, they became Muslim on the day of his funeral. And I've seen the effect when great people pass away. People get tawbah. People turn back to Allah. It's amazing. I've seen it. Just imagine seeing this. Being in that kind of environment. Thousands, 60,000 women, by the way, in case the sisters who are decreasing in numbers. 60,000 women came out. 60,000 women. Between us and them is our funeral. On the signs of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah.
Marking the departure of the last of the four great mujtahid imams of Islam.
That's where that's taken from. I hope that's kind of humbled you a little bit, right? That's humbled you and give you an insight into what kind of people are we talking about. Right?
Let's go back to the previous slide.
What we'll do, we'll leave questions at the end.
Right.
I have a question at the end, inshallah. You'll be the first one to ask a question. Bismillah.
The 5 legal rulings in the Shafi'i school.
I've used this because as we go on, we'll come back to this. I'm conscious that there's a Hanafi or Maliki. Hopefully everyone's following the madhab now, inshallah, otherwise you haven't been listening to what we're talking about. But I'm going to go for, just for purpose of the future classes, 5 rulings that I will be referring to going forward. Quite important.
Number 1, Fard or Wajib, obligatory. One is rewarded through performance of it and punished through non-performance of it. Sunnah, recommended. One is rewarded through performance of it, but is not punished by non-performance of it. Mubah. One is neither rewarded nor punished through the performance or non-performance of it. Makruh. One is not punished for the performance of it, but is rewarded from abstaining from it. Haram. One is punished by the performance of it and rewarded by abstaining from it.
So these are the 5 things that the Shafi'i scholars looked at. Every single action you can think of, every single human action you can do will fall into one of these 5 things. Give me something, I'll tell you if it fits. Shut up. Who said murder? Seriously, mashallah. Who said murder? Yeah? Who said murder? Who said Ramadan? I heard murder. No one, okay. Was I the only one that had murder? You had that as well? Okay. Somebody said murder. Oh, inshallah. Okay. I think it's haram. Personally, I don't know. Haram. Next, any other action?
Saying Sadaqallah al-Azim after you finish praying.
Saying?
Saying Sadaqallah al-Azim after you finish reciting.
Recommend. Sisters, any action, anything at all. Non-religious as well. Non-religious. Recommended, but leave non-religious. Give me non-religious things. Huh? Sitting. Just sitting normally, mubah, permissible. If you're sitting in the class, it becomes recommended. So things which are permissible you can get a reward for it. Like eating is permissible. But you say Bismillah, and you have the intention, when you're breaking your fast, or whatever it is, it has an intention. That permissible act becomes an act of dhulm, of reward, which you are worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that quote-unquote mundane act.
Getting a degree.
Getting a degree. Let's be uni, by the way. Again, intention. What's the intention? If the intention is good, mashallah, recommended. If it's knowledge that's obligatory, like some people come to this country because they want to take knowledge back to their countries. It could be wajib for some people. Right? If it's something that's going to cause problems, it could be haram. If you're doing it to do things haram with, it's haram. You get the idea. You get the idea. Alright, I've been asking this question now for weeks. It's taken a long time. I've done it on purpose. Bismillah. Hassan.
How has Islam been understood, preserved, and transmitted by the vast majority of scholars for the vast majority of our history?
When I say Islam, I mean the 5 pillars and everything else that comes after.
Madhabs.
Oh, I've proven that. Alright? Those who haven't been here, go back and listen to the lectures. Those who haven't been convinced, go back and listen to the lectures.
The way of the Orthodox Muslims is to follow one of these 4 schools.
Orthodox and Sunni Islam.
Following with the belief is defined as taking the opinion of another person without knowing his evidence.
That's the Asuli understanding of Taqlid.
Any question you have in Islam that is asking if something is permissible, obligatory, haram, or just simply can I do such and such, can be answered by seeing what the 4 madhabs said.
Next time you ask a question, is this halal? Is this haram? Can I do this? What do ulama say here? It's fiqh. So you're going to ask a question, and you know who to go to, and you know roughly there are going to be 4 schools on this opinion. 3 may say the same, and 1 may say something different, but you know, there's 4 schools. Alright. Listen to that. Now, there are objections. Okay? To following schools I'm going to look at later on. Objections.
We only follow the Quran and Sunnah. It's a bid'ah to follow them as they didn't exist at the time of the Prophet ﷺ or the generation after them. What madhab was the Prophet ﷺ? We are commanded to follow him and his companions, not these 4 imams. Taqlid is not allowed because you are following a mujtahid who is not divinely protected from error, while the Quran and Sunnah are.
Right, hands up. How many of you lovely people have heard one of these statements? Hands up high, hands sky. Try and picture that. Okay, hands up, people. How many of them have been since you've come to Liverpool? That's interesting. Just since you've come to Liverpool, prior to Liverpool, you didn't hear this. When you come to Liverpool, you heard these things. MashaAllah, just Muhammad. You live on the moon or something? Or? MashaAllah. I mean, lucky. We only follow the Quran and Sunnah. Alright, now you tell me the answer to that. I've given you enough information now to be able to respond to that. What's the response? Come over here better so I can see you. The screen's. Come over here. The screen's down there, I can't see you over there. Anyway, Bismillah. Loud so people can hear your voice.
Whatever you see from the Quran and Sunnah as an interpretation, you follow the interpretation of the learned people who are.
So, yes, we follow the Quran and Sunnah. Yes. Is following the 4 madhabs following something different from the Quran and Sunnah? It's the same thing. But whose interpretation are we going to follow? So we say, yes, we follow the Quran and Sunnah. Following the 4 madhabs is following the Quran and Sunnah. We agree? So that's kind of a false claim. The underlying principle behind that is what? If you take that statement is built on a principle, on an assumption. We only follow the Quran and Sunnah. Right? By them saying that to you, who's following a method, there's an assumption based on that statement. What's that underlying assumption? Ahsant. You, madhabs, Hanafi, Maliki, you are not following the Quran and Sunnah. You see how stupid that is? It's backbiting as well. You're backbiting against these imams. Not just the imams, the thousands of ulama and follow them. Ridiculous. Good, I hope that has reached your ears. Alright. It is bid'ah to follow one of them, as they didn't exist at the time of the Prophet or the generation after them. Respond to that now. It's bid'ah. Did they exist at the time of the Prophet? What is why following? Did it exist at the time of Abu Bakr and Umar? Did it? So it's bid'ah. Don't go off that. It's a lot more simple. That's a statement based on an assumption. Well,
Is it not the same assumption that they're saying like the four imams just came up with stuff? Like
Yes.
that's what they're saying it's bid'ah.
same thing. No difference. The same reply to the first is the same reply to the second. Ahsan. Same thing. See, now you guys are, well, one of you guys is getting it. Sisters, next one's you. Alright. What madhab of the Prophet? Sisters. Was he Hanafi? Was he Maliki? Was he Shafi'i? Was he Hanbali? None of them, alright? We're commanded to follow him and his companions, not his madhabs. Respond. Ya ayyuhal akhwat. Respond. Why is this you? There's others behind you as well. Respond. Speak. Raise your voice, Maria. Okay, that's the shorthand version, and it's bang on, which is correct. They're all following. They're all following the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Remember that diagram I gave you last week, where they all come from? I did that on purpose to answer these type of things. They all come. There's no difference. Did the Sahaba differ? They differ, didn't it? Right? And then that difference got transmitted to the generation after. Did anybody have any problems with the Sahaba differing between each other on issues of fiqh? Did anybody say you're wrong, I'm right? Did anybody have a problem with following Ibn Mas'ud over here? And only following Ibn Mas'ud? And some of the Sahaba followed this particular Sahabi? Not all the Sahaba were scholars. But a very limited number of scholars who were fuqaha, who were mujtahids. And people went to those mujtahids to ask questions. And they didn't go and ask Umar ibn Khattab, where's your dalil? That's the idea, you have to ask for dalil. No, you don't. You can if you want. But it's not a condition for you to follow a person to know the dalils. Because Umar ibn Khattab was slapped in the face. Where's your dalil? What? Him saying it is a dalil. Ali ibn Abi Talib saying it is a dalil. Ibn Abbas is a dalil. They're the dalils. And you can ask them, they'll give you it. But this idea, you have to ask for dalils, or you don't follow, is a bid'ah. And you can write it down and listen to what I'm saying, it's a bid'ah. It wasn't even done. That was the idea, you have to do that, is a bid'ah. This is the idea. Okay, definitely agree that.
That blade is not allowed because you are following a mujtahid who is not divinely protected from error, while the Quran and Sunnah are.
In brackets.
Following that which is divinely protected from error is better than following that which is not divinely protected from error.
This akhi, don't say. Akhi, ukhti. Alright? But it's sister, like ukhti. Alright? Say, look, the Quran and Sunnah is divinely protected. Divinely protected. No error. Do we agree? We agree? These imams are not divinely protected. Do we agree? Do we agree? Are they divinely protected from error? They can make errors because they are infallible. They're ma'soomeen. We agree. Why are you leaving the Quran and the Sunnah, which is infallible, divinely protected? Divinely protected. And you're following these imams who are not divinely protected. They could make mistakes. Leave those which can have mistakes and follow the Quran and the Sunnah, which has no mistakes. Good argument, right? Hands up if you think that's a good argument. Seriously, really? That's a good argument. It's a bad argument. Hands down, suggest to me you think that's a bad argument. Right then. What's your name? Second. Defend that. You said that's a bad argument. I think it's a good argument on my backwards. No, you had your hand down. Everybody had their hand down. Come on. I think it's a good argument. You had your hands down. Do you think it's a bad argument? Like, prove me wrong. Not just Baha, not just Baha around. I'll come back to you in a minute before these fail. Abdurrahman.
To be honest, I didn't hear you.
Okay, read it out loud so I can hear you. The last paragraph.
Always about context.
Read it out.
Taqleed is not allowed because you're following an ijtihad who is not divinely protected from error, while the Quran and Sunnah are. Following that which is divinely protected from error is better than following that which is not divinely protected from error.
Did you get that point? Is that a good point now to not follow schools of thought? Follow Quran, Quran and Sunnah. Allah, I've been saying to you for weeks, Allah will preserve this deen. Yes or no? I've been saying it for weeks. And the Quran and Sunnah is divinely protected. But these men, are not divinely protected. Leave that which is not divinely protected and follow that which is divinely protected. Good argument? Yes? Am I convincing some of you? Educate these people.
I was going to say that according to the Sunnah, the Ummah is also divinely protected by Allah. That it said that the Rasul said that Allah will not allow the Ummah to be led astray. The Ummah speaking of the majority of the scholars.
Right, keep going. I like it.
So by their logic, that the Ummah as a majority can't be misled either, according to the Sunnah, because if the Sunnah is divinely protected, then they have to subscribe to the idea that the majority, speaking of the majority of scholars who follow the madhabs, must be also correct in their understanding of the Quran and the Sunnah, because it applies to them as well.
I like that answer. It's a better answer than I had in mind. It's a better answer. I said, excellent answer. These phrases are all the same. In reality, they're all the same. You can answer them all with the same answer. Just like, you package it, iPhone 4, 5, 6, 7, it's the same thing. Just exactly the same thing. Just different ways. But yeah, as you said, Jazakallah khair, ahsant. Yeah, he's bang on. How are you going to follow the Quran and the Sunnah without someone's interpretation? You can't. And we're back to square one of the arguments. Follow the Quran and the Sunnah, but without human beings, without people, how? People, in that case, I'm going to follow the Sheikh now in this country, I'm going to follow his interpretation. Why is his interpretation more divinely protected than Imam Shafi'i, who lived very close to the time of the Sahaba? Abu Hanifa met the tail end of the Sahaba, as historical reports suggest. Get the point? Allah has a better answer. Alhamdulillah. Alright. We follow the strongest evidence. Very favourite one. This is a more softer approach. We recognise you have to follow four madhabs because you can't argue now against this. Historically, you can't mean Muslim and non-Muslims who have any intelligence have learned history. We know that the four madhabs is part and integral of our faith historically, so you can't argue that. So now the slant has changed. We now follow the strongest dalil. Follow the dalil. Not the imams. It's a bit more difficult, this one.
The dalil that you're talking about, they also have access to. So their interpretation is still better than yours.
Alright, okay, so their interpretation is better than mine. Why? We heard, for those with me on Jum'ah, somebody saying, I kid you not, right? Those who know about it. Listen to this statement. Actually, we'll pause that one. I'll answer this one. Somebody said to me, I hear you, Sheikh. You always talk about scholars and books. Okay, yeah. And then he answers, but I don't hear you talk about the Quran and the Sunnah. Okay, right. You should be talking about the Quran and the Sunnah and not about scholars and books. And then it went on, it got worse. We should be going directly to the Quran and the Sunnah without scholars. That's a normal afternoon for me. That's a normal afternoon. I'm like, can you see what it's like for me now? How do you And the person wants a quick answer. Where do you begin to deal with that kind of outlook? Where would you begin? Well, just tell me where you start. Someone can help me. I don't have to deal with people like that. There are so many misconceptions in that. Each misconception is an hour to explain. I've spent like 3 weeks and 9 hours, heading towards 9 hours explaining methods. This person has come with so many misconceptions. I don't even know how to begin. I just say, come to classes. Just come. Oh, I'm busy. Okay, class. Oh. They're recorded, the slides are there, come to classes. Can somebody, who would like to answer that question? Nobody? That's about, you should answer that question.
What are scholars read?
No, you gotta answer a question. You can't ask a question without answering. No, they want to answer.
Do you value your own reading by Sunnah more than your scholars?
Oh, we have to ask them. They talk about madness, not me. But yeah, this is the. Each point that's person made needs several hours just to explain why they're wrong on each point before you even come into the answer. And that's why I do these classes. You know, so people can understand. And that's why I call it chaos. And those who are with me after Jum'ah, how many of you heard that with me on Jum'ah? Hands up. People don't believe that I'm making this up. Hands up high. Yeah, you guys heard it. You guys heard what was said. The mind boggles. Anyway, we follow the strongest evidence. So the idea behind this is that they'll say, all right, we recognize Shafi'i said this, the Maliki say this, the Hanafi say this, the Hanbali say that, but the strongest proof, the strongest is Kada. Or, let's say, after those 4, the strongest is Abu Hanifa. And the person saying this follows none of those 4. What's wrong with that approach? Or first, is that approach right or wrong? It's wrong. Why is that approach wrong?
Who are we to decide what's the strongest opinion?
Who, excellent, who are we to decide?
What the strongest opinion is?
I'm following Sheikh so-and-so, whose name will not be mentioned. I'm following Sheikh so-and-so. He's a Sheikh, mashallah.
So where did they get their knowledge from?
Don't go too far. Stay on this point. Think back to the last lecture. Go ahead.
You could be doing something that breaks the conditions of all of the madhabs that you are picking and choosing from.
That's right. We'll pull back something fundamental.
There's a lot of chaos.
Yeah, tell me, mate. Say it loud so they can all hear, and the live streamers, and the 300 people who are going to watch by the end of the week. Say it loud so they can hear. Give them a microphone. Wait. Got the microphone. Say it loud.
Is that person mujtahid?
Is that person a mujtahid? Are you a mujtahid? Is that person who said that to me? You should be going to the Quran and listening. Are you a mujtahid? That's the first thing. Secondly, your Sheikh. Is he a mujtahid? What are the conditions of mujtahid? Let's go back and have a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Does your Sheikh have those conditions that the Ummah have agreed upon? You're going to say no. Why? Because nobody since those 4 Imams has ever claimed it as being accepted. Imam Asyuti mentioned it, he took it back. Nobody has reached that level. It's open, brother, sister, bismillah. But nobody's managed to reach those, the conditions of a mujtahid. To be able to go to the Quran and Sunnah directly, you have to have high rank of knowledge, which we spoke about last week. Yeah, and we've read today the Imams look alike. So, are you mujtahid? Nope. Follow the Quran and Sunnah. Where's the deal? فَاسْأَلْ أَهْلَ ذِكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if you don't know. Do you know? No. What do? Ask the people knowledge. Not like this person said to me, follow the Quran and the Sunnah directly. Allah didn't say, follow the Quran and the Sunnah if you do not know. Allah said, what? Ask the people of knowledge. Don't deal. That's what reply. What people don't want to hear. Simple. Ask. We don't know. Ask. Allah said, ask the people of knowledge. And the ulama of usul, they say, these are the point that I had. They need to be asked. So we're not mujtahid. Sit down, be quiet. It's simple as that. Sit down, be quiet. You're not mujtahid. But more important, you know that. It's the idea that we follow the strongest evidence based on whichever Sheikh can tell you the strongest evidence. Are they on the same level as these 4 imams? Tell me which is right, which is wrong. Are they praying like them? You can argue, we don't need to have the same piety. Yes, you have to have the same piety. Don't come and say to me, we don't have to have the same piety as these imams. You know, praying Fajr with wudu Isha 40 years, reading the Quran twice a night. And you're going to come and say they're wrong. Who are you? Who are you? No, you know we're near the level. I will not say that level can't be reached. It's not, you can't, nobody can reach it. It's open. It's open. Don't come now and say, I'm on a level, I'm higher than them. To be able to tell which is right, which is wrong. So you're higher mujtahid than them? Really? Let's have the ummah. Let's all the scholars of the ummah, let's sit down, let's test you out. You see I've seen people smile, it's good. You've seen the ridiculousness of some of these things. But move on from that madness, the second madness. Can we move between schools and take opinions as they are all correct? All from madahib are correct. Yes? All four are correct. I just pick whatever I want from all four. So, hey, this needs a bit tweaking. And I think I've answered it before. Alright? I have answered this before. So say my voice, who can answer this one? You answer it? Seriously. The only one time I ask you to answer a question you can't answer it. Marhaba, doesn't matter. Like, in one act of worship, Salah, you follow one school. Zakah, you will follow another school. Marriage, another school. Fasting, another school. Generally speaking, you stick to one school for one act of worship. Generally speaking. Alright? Like, to give you an example of where this can go wrong, in marriage, in the madahib, there's an opinion that says, from one of the schools, that the girl does not need her wali. A girl does not need her what? Her wali, her guardian. She can marry herself off. Right? I'll take that. Another opinion says a girl and a boy and girl do not need witnesses. Don't need witnesses. I'll take that. Another opinion says that marriage doesn't have to be public. It can be secret. I'll take that as well. But all together, you've got a secret marriage. Nobody knows. All those have been taken from all madahib, which we're saying all correct. Yes? All correct. All four schools say that's zina. All four schools say that's zina. Fornication. Because no one recognizes the validity of that marriage. There's no wali for those who want a wali. There's no witnesses for those that want to witness. There's no public display for those who want to, who that's a condition. All four will say that's zina, haram. Marriage, that's not done correct, it's zina. You see how dangerous it is? So scholars say to avoid that, stick to one school in one act of worship. We mentioned last week, I think it was you, in prayer sometimes you can pray with your hands differently. Yes, because the same thing which are sunnah. In the Shafi'i school, the sunnah is to place your hands above the belly button and the chest. In the Hanafi school, it's below the belly button. In the Maliki school, one opinion is to put both hands down. Now, because those things are recommended and don't invalidate an act of worship, you potentially can do all of them. It doesn't invalidate the act of worship. But that needs knowledge. That needs you to study fiqh. Every single person listening, every single person, male and female here, and those listening, have to study a madhab. You take a book of fiqh, you go to an imam or scholar, and they'll teach you. It doesn't take very long. Listen to that. Well, can we not follow the easy option because our religion is simple? Whichever one says it's permissible, I'm going to follow them. That's it, I want to answer. I'm just going to follow whichever one says I can do what I want to do. That's haram. Because you're searching for rukhas. تتبع rukhas. Looking for the easiest opinion on every single thing. Easiest opinion. Easy opinion on certain matters, always after the most easiest. But the end is left ease. We don't want that. Just want to follow the most easiest opinion. And you end up, what happens there, you end up leaving Islam. Because you're going to find things that allow you to do this, that allow you to do that, and you end up leaving Islam. There has to be some kind of difficulty in the end. You have to flow a bit, right? Not just all ease. And Islam is ease, but not to the level where you want to find every single loophole, ease, that's going to make my life easy. No. Inshallah. Alright, listen to that.
Summary. It is compulsory to follow one of the four schools in matters of law. Following is not deviancy, rather it is the path of guidance.
Alright, listen to that. You have to read that. These are recommended readings. You asked me a few weeks ago. Yeah? Slightly delayed by several weeks, but it's there. You want to know more on this topic? Stuff that I can't give you, stuff that I don't have time to give you, stuff that I've taken from, it's all here. That article, Understanding the Four Methods, I read that in the late 90s, and it changed my mind on methods. I was convinced by reading that article. Why Muslims follow a method by Sheikh Noor Kala? Again, the link is there. What is a method? Why is it necessary to follow? Again, by Sheikh Noor. Hamza Yusuf, the prerequisites of a mujtahid. YouTube. It's old, but my God, that's probably the best lectures that I've ever heard on the prerequisites of a mujtahid. Said far more eloquently. Listen to that YouTube lecture. It is mashallah. Many brothers and sisters were convinced of following a method in the late 90s by that lecture. Convinced many brothers. At a time when methods didn't follow them, he convinced a lot of people. And subhanAllah is in his ajr. And the last book, Allah Madhabiyya by Sheikh Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Hudhi. That's a book I recommend reading. It's a bit more technical, but it deals with basically Sheikh Muhammad Sa'id Ramadan al-Hudhi. He was, a book was written in his time arguing for not following madhabs. Madhabs is bid'ah, madhabs are dividing the ummah, madhabs, it's kufr to follow a madhab. A whole host of things. He wrote a book in which he answered every single argument, and indeed some of the stuff I told you today and previous classes come from that particular book. It's a book, it's a refutation, inshallah, but I'd read other stuff first and then have that book to read in your own time, inshallah. Everything you need is there. Have an open heart. That's all I ask. Have a heart and mind that is open. If what I'm saying goes against what your parents have told you, or go against what you believe, or go against whatever it is it goes against, I'm not giving my opinion. This is historical facts. The ummah follow methods. Anybody saying you don't follow method, you've got to look at it in the light of reality. People follow methods. Alright? And anybody saying otherwise, irrespective of who they are wrong. And I mean that with the greatest level of respect. But our deen is lillah. Our deen is lillah. لا طاعة لمخلوق في معصية الخالق. There's no obedience to creation if it means disobedience to Allah. We're all going to stand up for Allah on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And how you practice your deen is going to define how high or how low you go in Jannah. How you practice your deen. So you have to practice your deen correctly. And the madhahib will help you and support you and protect you from innovation. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam. So that's me done. Madhabs. I'm surprised and I'm very happy that you guys are still here weeks later. That was one of the most difficult parts to get through. If you've got it, your life will be so much easier. Once you understand, the madhahib are there for you to take knowledge from. طيب. Sisters, Any questions based on this topic? Bismillah.
I don't know if you're being correct, but when it comes to like marriage and stuff, they recommend to marry someone who goes the same length for
Excellent. What's your name, sorry?
marriage.
Maria. Tayyip, do you have to follow somebody, so you have to marry somebody from the same method? Yes or no? Two Shafi'is, two Malikis, someone says sister, the brother says sister, I can't marry you, or the way around. I can't marry you, brother. Why? We're Hanafi, I'm Maliki. Okay, fine. Why is that an issue? Why is it an issue? There's no issue, there's no problem. They just barely have 80% of these schools are the same. No problem. I know people, the wife's Hanafi, the husband's Shafi. It will all be an issue, not much. Because if she touches him as a Shafi, his will was broken. Her will was not, so she didn't touch him, and he's not going to be with it. That's what it is. It's not hard. People can live. People have. They don't have to fight. They bring tolerance. A better question is this. Better question. We'll have to answer. Yusuf, I'm not going to go I like that. Better question is this. Somebody wants to marry you, and you follow method, and they don't. That's a better question. That's a more interesting question. Is that what you're laughing? That's a better question. Because how is that going to play out? That's going to cause difficulties. Especially if one is convinced we follow method, and the other is convinced we don't follow method. Imagine Salah, imagine Zakah, fasting. One says, I'm going to go do X, Y, and Z. The other one says, that's bid'ah. One says, I'm going to do this. The other one says, that's shirk. And jokes aside, that is something that people have divorced over. People have divorced over it because different interpretation of Islam. And both are very strict and not willing to budge. And that has led to divorces. Better question, are they following one of the 4 schools? That's a better question, more useful. Bismillah.
Someone asked a question on the live stream.
Also, how many people are following?
4 right now.
Okay, Bismillah.
He says,
A nice question or a horrible question?
I have no idea. He just asks what your thoughts are on Ibn Rajab al-Hanbali's Arhab al-Man Kitab al-Ghayr al-Madahib.
I haven't read it, I haven't Arabic. I read it very briefly. It's similar, and probably to a lesser degree. He talked about an opinion, a view that happened in his time of people not following the 4 schools, because certain scholars existed that kind of pushing, very small minority. I haven't read it, but in this day and age, the things that you look at, the kind of questions you guys will be asked or be thrown your way, are all dealt with in these articles here. But you can tell that something respect to these things come and go every now and again. Just get repackaged. Shaitan repackages it and brings it out in different generation. It just depends how many hearts and minds are open to that kind of what he's saying. Next question. Listen.
So, say it's like a shafirah, one madhab and another. So the example you mentioned before about a wedding, and one madhab requires a wedding, another madhab says you can do it in private. How do you navigate those type of differences where
you go to the imam to make sure he knows what he's doing when he marries you. That's when you have the imam. You don't do nothing. The imam tells you what to do. He tells you, right, go with your dad. And the guy tells the guy, right, go big two witnesses. That's you have faqih. A faqih, you have to worry. Go to the faqih, he'll tell you what to do. 1, 2, 3, 4. You go and bring 1, 2, 3, 4, marriage is done.
So is that what you should do, obviously in the greater context, so if there's ever a conflict, something just go to it?
You go to the imam, the scholar, he knows it, and you follow what he tells you. As long as he knows what he's talking about. Which you have to ask him. Not, do you know what you're talking about? You know, you ask him then what school of thought and you have the imam. You tell me you want to follow whatever school he's saying, just follow the school. And make sure he knows the rules of nikah. Mustafa.
Yeah, so what if, for example, you move a lot through countries and then the prominent madhab would be different, and so you wouldn't have access to the exact same, to a sheikh that follows one madhab, and so you would have like kind of clash.
Right, all right, good question. And I think you and you in the front, obviously you him. What's your name again?
Me?
Aywa.
Budi.
You come from Indonesia, or Shafi'i?
Yeah.
Yeah. And you come here, when you come here, say it's all Hanafi, predominantly Hanafi, right? It's different. So, there's no clash. If we know your school, we follow your school. No one will know what school you're on. You just follow whatever school you're on. There's no clash. I can't see it that being a problem. The only time that's going to be a problem with Shafi'i, right? You go to a Hanafi mosque and Salah, in the fact that and we're Shafi'iyah, we say Ameen. You and I and Muslim will be the only three saying that after a mosque of 600 people. It's all silent. Only almost three, because in the Shafi'i school, saying Ameen is recommended. In the Hanafi school, it's not. Well, you might get beaten up afterwards, but I'm joking. That wouldn't happen. But that kind of things you pick up very quickly. The adhan is slightly different in certain mosques. Takbir al-Eid in certain mosques are different because they're from the Hanafi school. You guys come here, you accept those opinions. As long as they're following the school, it teaches you tolerance. Because you're coming outside your country, outside of what you're learning, and you come in and you see a different school, a different method, and that teaches you tolerance. You see, it teaches you to be tolerant. SubhanAllah, this is the school. That they don't say Ameen like we say it. They don't put their hands where we put it. They don't say the takbir after the Eid like we do it. The adhan is different. But it learns you what? Hakeem. Tolerance. And there's other opinions that are valid that also exist. So it's a good thing. As long as you don't go start shouting at them. I say, no, the Shafi'i school is correct. Nah, we don't want them. We don't want I don't see it much in the Shafi'i anymore. Bigotry in schools that we don't agree with. Say, no, my school is right, everything is wrong. Or my school is superior. Mention Imam al-Ghazali. Mention that last week. Next question. These slides will be uploaded for those who want them, inshallah. Tonight, inshallah. You know what? So, Amir, again, you had a question.
I did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you just have
Forgive me for not coming to you first.
No, it's okay.
I'll come to you second, right? Actually, remind me to come back to you. Afwan,
Yeah, you just have to go back on the pages for the slides.
what was the page about?
Kind of, we just keep going now. I think it's the previous one. Yeah, I just wanted you to, just shed more light on the second to the last paragraph. Yeah.
I was wondering why nobody asked about that. We'll come to that in Aqidah. As part of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, because we believe in the Sunni Aqidah that can happen, that you can see Allah. But not in a bodily form. I deliberately left it out, alright? Because we're going to come to it in 2 weeks' time.
I was just going to ask if that's similar to what happened to
So Mi'raj?
no, I was going to say Musa alayhi salam.
Aywa.
Is it because it was a
To
different
Musa.
sort of is it Rahman? Is that what it's called?
Well, it's all coming. It's all coming. I'll answer that in about 2 weeks' time. There's a reason why I'm leaving it, because there's a precursor, there's a build-up. Inshallah. There's a build-up to that. You want to jump to episode 6? I'm 1, 2, 3, 4 first. And there's a bonus in the trailer at the beginning. Bonuses. The extra, you need to see this first before we get there. Listen.
Some people, when they start practicing Islam, they get knowledge of certain people. But right now, they don't follow one person. So people that have learned that now, what do they do for every day?
Right, raise your voice again. Where's the microphone? Give this guy a microphone. Between him and Taha, the microphone, 2 microphones. One for him, one for him.
People that talk
Is that a microphone? Is that a bush? Huh? Hold it up, let people see. Look at it. Is that a microphone? It's a joke, right? That's a microphone. Huh? Really? It's like a brush. Hold it up, hold it up. Isn't that a good, right? Thanks.
Some people that they start practicing Islam, the people that they get knowledge of and the people that they hold against them, even if it's their parents or something, they don't follow that, so they might have a skewed understanding. So what do they do now when they learn the right book?
So this is a difficult thing. And look, I recognize and I realize, and I've been doing this long enough to know that some of you will start dropping off in these classes, and indeed, some of you have dropped off. Various reasons, I imagine. And some of those reasons, I would imagine, would be that what I'm saying is in stark contrast to what you've been led to believe. And I accept that. However, my challenge to you is that what I'm saying is historically proven. What I'm saying to you, and I said it in the beginning, prove to me that people didn't follow, who were Sunnis, who didn't follow these four schools. Prove to me that's not the vast majority. Prove to me that the vast majority of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah scholars from then on until now did not follow that. Prove to me that the Mujaddids every 100 years did not follow madhab. Prove to me these things. Because I'm coming, I spent 9 hours of my life explaining, and you're going to come at me with more. So you're going to convince me. I've got history. You go to the Oxford or Cambridge professor or the Harvard professor who's not Muslim, he'll tell you the same thing as me. Some of the things I've taken from Cambridge professors of Islamic faith. Take them from them. P.J. Winters, for example. So my point is this. If you find yourself in a situation like, wow, I'm convinced now what he says is correct, but it goes against my sheikh, or it goes against my teacher, or it goes against my parents, or it goes against whoever it goes against, what I say to you is this. You are worshipping Allah lillah. Your deen is lillah. You're going to stand in front of Allah. You're not going to stand in front of me, or in front of your sheikh, or in front of whoever. You're going to stand in front of Allah. And you're responsible for the decisions you make. And you're responsible for following who you're following. This deen, don't mess around. Make sure you find the right understanding of the deen. Because when you're not qiyamah, you don't want to be standing in the wrong place. You don't want to be, and hence, this topic is so important. So there's some tough decisions, and I get it. And I sit with people, and they tell me, because it's your trust, I get it. Because you trusted this person. And they told you X, Y, and Z. And maybe you became Muslim because of that. Or maybe you made Tawbah because of that. Maybe you started practicing because of them. And now you're realizing, wow, you're not right. I've been there myself. This is where sincerity now comes in. You follow them, you follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You follow them, you follow Allah Azza wa Jalla. You follow them. You follow them. So yeah, I get it. And listen, anybody in that situation, come to me. I'm going to be a lot more nicer, honestly. Sure. Yeah, we'll talk. I do get it. I've been there. I see many people who've been there. And it's, remind yourselves of who you're worshiping. Play. Oh.
You know, with the categorization of actions, with the categorization of actions, so things that are followed and wajib and stuff like that, does some things necessarily have to be sunnah to be recommended?
In the Shafi'i school, sunnah are recommended, are used interchangeably, same thing, mustahab, mandub, same thing. Sunnah, mustahab, same thing. In the Shafi'i school.
So for example, do you know how Imam Shafi'i would read the Quran every day? Was that something that was considered sunnah?
That's something recommended. So, okay, I get you. I see. Sunnah, in the sense that it's sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's things which are recommended. No one can say reading the Quran is bad. Not everything that Lecture 7 will come on this show. Did the Prophet do every single good thing that was able to be done throughout history? Did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam do every single good thing that could ever be done throughout history in his time? We don't know. Innovator. I'd say it.
I'd say he was like the best of man. So I would
نعم
say
عليه الصلاة والسلام الإنسان الكامل عليه الصلاة والسلام ما شاء الله Nobody could do what he did in Isra al-Haraj and going, and even Jibreel stopped. I'm going to go any further. I said, you go ahead, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. I'm not saying anything about him sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in that his rank. What we're saying is something specific. Every single good act that can be done, every single good act that can ever be done, did he do it in his age? Charity, did he charity in his age? Do a class, Monday class like I'm doing right now? No. Is that a good act? Yes. Therefore, every single good act that can ever be done in detail? No. General principles? Yes. And from that, we talk about bid'ah. Bid'ah hasana, which we'll talk about in the future. Inshallah, we stand there putting seeds in your minds, not doubt. Anything, sisters? Afwan, hey, bismillah, sorry.
There's people that advise that you should look at the specific book that they apply to is the sort of that they should look at either first, or I'm not so sure about
Right, الأصول الثلاثة is not in fiqh, it's in aqeedah, right?
So they advise that you should read on that before you look
Can I say, what's your name, sorry? Tamina. Could you come next week? We're going to deal with that next week. The next two classes will be doing stuff about that. Alright? Because I can go into that right now, but there'll be things that you need to understand first. Like the madhabs, it took me a long time just to get you to this point. You see, other stuff will be easier to get to. It won't take as long, but I feel like to give you the answer that you deserve and need, you need to come to the next class. And that's not me saying you just to kind of get around the answer, which most times I do that on purpose in prayer, and get people to come to classes. But yeah, that's going to be answer. You'll answer that yourself after 2 classes. I promise you, 2 classes you'll answer yourself. Anybody else? Back here, Bismillah.
So, with the Shafi'i school, you have 5 so in the Hanafi school, there's 11. So you mentioned, so you said that when it comes to madhabs, you should follow one act of worship. Now,
it means you have to understand, you have to learn the fiqh, rulings of that act of worship. If you want to become a Shafi'i in zakah, you have to learn the Shafi'i fiqh of zakah. You want to be Hanafi in marriage, you have to learn the Hanafi madhab when it comes to marriage. You have to learn. It's difficult, right? I mean, it's not difficult, but time out.
So, because like you're talking about sunnah recommended. In the Hanafi school, they're both separated. So, how do you kind of like navigate in that sense? Because there'll be like.
What's it navigate? You just follow the school and acquisition.
But then, what if like that? So the Shafi'i school has like sunnah recommended for the wajib, but then the Hanafi school might have.
So what act of worship are you going to do?
Okay, let's say zakah.
Zakah. What school are you going to follow?
Let's say for this instance, Hanafi.
Okay.
But then you follow the Shafi'i.
No. You have to follow the Hanafi.
The Shafi'i ihkam.
No, you're going to follow. If you're going to be Hanafi,
Okay, that's it.
you're going to have to be. If you're going to use. I'm Shafi'i. That's what I've learned. That's my kind of background, my expertise. 7 years studying it with the muftis. When it comes to zakat al-fitr, I become Hanafi.
So you would follow those 11 ihkams.
I follow when it comes to zakat al-fitr specifically, I follow the Hanafi school. Why? In the Shafi'i school, we can't give out money. In the Shafi'i school, we give out rice or wheat or whatever the staple food is in that area. In Abdo Kulia Mosque, I'm not going to give mu'min a brother, drop a bag of rice. When the brother comes round, I put a bag of rice in the shelter. So I think I'm a Shafi'i, so I'll take the Hanafi position, we give out the qima, the monetary equivalent. Stick to one school and one act of worship. Simple.
Follow the ihkam of what?
Yeah, the act. Bismillah.
Are there any more criticisms of Imam Abu Hanifa that we've not mentioned?
Come follow me for a week and you'll hear things you've never heard before. Just follow me around for a week. Just follow me. Or you can sit in Jum'ah for an hour afterwards and you can hear the things I heard. From behind the curtain and in front of the curtain.
there ever been like a difference in opinion between scholars that follow the same method? And like if so,
Yes, within a madhab there's difference. نعم. أيوة.
how does one then like?
So in the Shafi'i school, for example, there's Imam al-Nawawi is looked at as, and he came centuries later, he's looked at as being, mashallah, Imam of the Madhab, although Imam al-Shafi'i was centuries before. He differed with Imam al-Rafi'i, his age. The strongest opinion is what Imam al-Nawawi says, although you can follow Imam al-Rafi'i. Several centuries later, you have Ibn Hajar, Makki, Imam al-Ramli from Egypt. They're the latter day Shafi'i scholars. When you study fiqh, they teach you these things. These opinions can be used interchangeably. Whichever opinion you want, you can follow. When you study fiqh, you realize that. And in Hadith school, you have Imam Abu Hanifa, you have Sahibain as well. And in the Maliki school, the same thing. These questions get answered when you start learning the method. We will pray Isha at the end, inshallah. Mustafa.
Just to follow on my last question, because you answered in relation to other people. Now, just to follow through that, then what about like through myself? Would I have to follow the Sheikh and at that point where I am?
Give me an example.
Like for example, because I'm a Shafi'i, and then I go to a place and it's predominantly Hanafi, and the Sheikhs there are Hanafi, and I need a fatwa on a certain issue.
Like, ahsan, good question. You need a fatwa on a certain situation, like student finance. It's very, right? In that, you can follow the fatwa of the Sheikh. As long as he's a mufti in one of the 4 schools, you can take his fatwa. Fatwa is different. Fatwa is different. Let's say you want a fatwa on a particular thing, you want to ask him, you're a mufti or mustafti. You give him the fatwa. If you need it. You have to ask somebody who's mufti. Like, anything from the sisters before you leave? Like, well, recite the Fatiha and make a dua, recite the Fatiha, and we'll continue, but conscious this is what how to leave the Fatiha. Just that you get the barakah of the dua at the end, inshallah. So yes, feel free to leave the girls and the guys. Bismillah, what's your name?
Abdul Wasi.
Abdul Wasi. Allah yuwassa'na yuwassa'kum inshallah. Bi'ilm al-ilm al-nafi'.
Yeah, Sheikh, I just got a question. You know, like if I'm following Shafi'i madhab and I go to a masjid that is obviously they follow al-Hanafiyya, and for example, they all say Ameen, then they don't say Ameen, and I'm the only one saying Ameen. And the second rak'ah after that, would I just stay quiet for the out of respect of what they follow, or do I?
That's a beautiful question. Barakallah feek. Ahsan. What you do there, out of respect for the people and the madhab, you remain silent. And you're valid. You respect that the school. Yeah. So that's what I do. I'll remain silent. Position of Abu Hanifa. No, it's not like just kind of talk that out of a hat. It's a valid position. So I have respect for that position. So yeah, and the Imams, I didn't have time. There's beautiful stories. And people might have problems with this, but this is history. Imam al-Shafi'i, he prayed Fajr near the grave. Near the grave of Imam Abu Hanifa. Near the grave of Imam Abu Hanifa, he prayed Fajr. In the Shafi'i school, those were Shafi'i, right? In the second rak'ah, what do we do? Al-Fajr, Qunut. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وباركنا فيما اعطيت وقنا وهكذا. He didn't say that. Although it's the strongest position in the school, he didn't say that. And the scholars who were praying with him said, Ya Imam Shafi'i, have you changed your position in your madhab? Because this is the recommended, the sunnah, what you say, yes, to say qunut in every second rak'ah of every fajr. And he said, no, I have my position. ولكن احترام لصاحب القبر. Respect for the person whose grave is there. For those people who are simple-minded, maybe listening, he wasn't praying to Imam Abu Hanifa's grave. He wasn't praying to Imam Abu Hanifa's grave. He wasn't praying to Imam Abu Hanifa's grave. Allah yawsa'ih. Right? For a 4th time. Sometimes you got to cheer, because people only want to hear what they want to hear. He wasn't praying to the Imam for goodness sake. He wasn't a mushrik. He knows what he was doing for goodness sake. unlike you and your Sheikh. على كل حال, well, he didn't change his position. He had out of respect for this Imam. Even in their death, he respected the positions. So to answer your question, yes, respect the positions. طيب,
Would the Shafi'i get more reward than if he in that position than if he
لا reward لله, you have to ask Allah. The rewards are علم الله. If you follow a mujtahid and he's right, when the mujtahid does ijtihad, he gains 2 rewards. When the mujtahid does ijtihad, he gains 2 rewards. And if he's wrong, he gets 1 reward. So if he's right, he gets 2 rewards. If he's wrong, he gets 1 reward. Either way, you're rewarded. And either way, you and I have to ask and go back to the people of knowledge. فَاسْأَلْ أَهْلِ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask the people of knowledge if we do not know. We have to ask the ulama. We can't go back to the Quran and the Sunnah. Because we're not scholars, we are not mujtahids. Anything else? Anything else? Answer your question, Muslim?
Yes.
Answer your question. Answer. Then, nothing. Okay, we will, Muslim, say that and we'll finish it. Unless you need to go right now.
Well, it's not an emergency, but.
Pray as if you last prayer.
Okay, inshallah.
That's the emergency, inshallah. Okay, do that now, and we'll pray, inshallah. And the QR code, right?